They never thought you'd actually leave. They assumed you'd always be there, always answering, always reacting. But the moment you walked away, without a word, without a fight, that's when everything changed. Because silence is louder than screaming. Absence is heavier than presence. And when you stop giving people access to you, that's when they realize what they've lost. But by then, it's already too late. Walking away isn't just an action, it's a statement. A statement that says, I am no longer available for your games, your disrespect, or your lack of appreciation. It's the moment when you reclaim your power, not through words, not through arguments, but through silence. Because silence forces reflection. It forces people to sit with their own actions, their own mistakes, and their own regrets. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. But most people don't value what's in front of them until it's gone. They push limits, test patience, and assume there will always be another chance. But when you decide, enough is enough, and remove yourself from the equation, it sends a shock wave through their world. They don't get closure. They don't get a final word. They don't get a chance to manipulate you into staying. Instead, they're left with nothing but the emptiness of your absence. And that emptiness, it haunts them. It lingers in their thoughts when they least expect it. It keeps them up at night, replaying every moment, searching for answers they'll never get. See, when you argue, when you try to explain yourself, when you beg someone to see your worth, you give them power. You give them control over the situation. They see you as someone still invested, still reachable, still emotionally hooked. But when you walk away with no explanation, no justification, and no reaction, that's when you become unforgettable. That's when they realize, I had something good, and I lost it. And nothing tortures the human mind more than an unsolved mystery. Think about it. How many times have you seen people take something for granted, assuming it would always be there, only to realize its value when it's gone? It's human nature. People don't appreciate consistent love, loyalty, or effort until they're forced to face life without it. And the ones who thought they could do better? Who thought they could replace you easily? They're the ones who suffer the most, because replacements never feel the same. There's always something missing, something they can't quite recreate, and that something is you. By the time they understand what they lost, they start searching for you in everyone else, but it's too late. You've moved on, you've detached, you've reclaimed your energy, and now they're the ones left drowning in the silence you created. That's the power of walking away. The mind is wired to seek closure. It craves explanations, reasons, anything that can turn confusion into understanding. But when you walk away without a word, you deny them that comfort. You leave them stranded in a storm of their own thoughts, questioning everything. Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Why didn't they fight for this? The uncertainty eats away at them, becoming an obsession they can't shake. And that's exactly why your silence is so powerful. When you argue, plead, or try to make them see your worth, you give them an escape. They can blame you. They can twist your words. They can convince themselves that you were the problem. But when you leave with nothing but silence, they have no one to argue with but themselves. Every scenario plays in their head like a broken record, each time with a different answer, a different regret. At first, they might not react. They might act like they don't care, like your absence doesn't affect them. But that's just a mask, a defense mechanism. Because deep down, they feel the void. It starts as a small thought in the back of their mind, but it grows, it festers, It turns into late-night overthinking, scrolling through old messages, checking your social media, looking for any sign that you still care. And when they find nothing, when they see you moving on as if they never existed, that's when it really hits them. Regret is a slow poison. It doesn't strike all at once. It creeps in, piece by piece. The places they used to see you, the conversations they used to have with you, the inside jokes only the two of you understood. All of it becomes a reminder of what they lost. They start to wonder what would have happened if they had treated you differently, if they had valued you while they still had the chance. But that's the thing about chances. Once they're gone, they don't always come back. And that's when the desperation begins. They reach out. Maybe with a simple message, something casual like, "Hey, how have you been?" Or maybe they don't even have the courage to text, so they watch your stories, hoping you'll notice, hoping you'll take the bait. But you won't. Because walking away wasn't a game. It wasn't a strategy to get their attention. It was a decision, a final one. And that's what makes it so devastating. You see, when you truly walk away, you send a message that words never could. I am done. I am no longer an option. I am no longer accessible to you. And that's when they realize they lost someone irreplaceable. Not because you told them, not because you begged them to see your value, but because they felt the weight of your absence, and there is nothing heavier than that. At first, they tell themselves it's fine, that they don't need you, that your absence is temporary or worse, that it doesn't even matter. They distract themselves. They fill their time with meaningless conversations, shallow connections, and empty distractions. But it's never enough. Because no matter how hard they try to escape it, the silence you left behind is always there, lurking beneath the surface. And then, slowly, it starts to happen. They begin to notice the difference. The people they once surrounded themselves with don't understand them the way you did. The conversations they have now feel forced, surface level, lacking the depth and connection they once had with you. They start comparing. And that's the worst part for them, because once you've experienced something real, something genuine, nothing else feels quite the same. They might not admit it at first, but deep down, they know. They lost something they can't replace, and that realization is unbearable. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in during quiet moments, in the spaces where you used to exist, the way you used to laugh at their jokes, the way you used to check in on them without being asked, the way you understood them in a way no one else did. They start to realize that the things they once overlooked were actually the things that mattered most. That's when the panic sets in, because now they have to face the truth. You're really gone, and they don't know how to handle that. So they reach out, not because they've changed, not because they suddenly appreciate you, but because they can't stand the emptiness. They don't miss you. They miss the comfort, the security, the validation you once provided. They miss having access to you, knowing that no matter what, you'd still be there. But this time, you're not. And that's what makes walking away so powerful. Because you're not just removing yourself from their life. You're forcing them to confront themselves, to face the consequences of their actions, to sit with their regrets, their mistakes, their loss. You are no longer their emotional crutch, their safety net, their backup plan. And that realization hits harder than any words ever could. This is when they start making excuses. Suddenly they weren't in the right place back then. Suddenly they didn't realize what they had. They come up with every possible reason for why they let you slip away. except the one that truly matters. They took you for granted. And now it's too late. Because while they were busy assuming you'd always be there, you were busy moving on. That's the power of walking away. It's not about teaching them a lesson. It's not about proving a point. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to stay where you're not valued. And once you master that, you become untouchable. And that's when reality starts to sink in. They thought they could replace you, that someone else could fill the space you left behind. But what they failed to understand is that connections like yours don't come around often. You weren't just another person in their life. You were an experience, a presence, a force. And now that you're gone, they're left with a hollow imitation of what they once had. At first they'll deny it. They'll pretend they don't care. They'll even try to convince themselves that they're better off. But deep down, there's a voice in the back of their mind whispering the truth. No one else sees me the way they did. No one else understands me like they did. No one else feels the same. And that realization, it's suffocating. Because now, they're stuck with the weight of their own decisions. They replay every conversation, every moment, every mistake. They start noticing the little things they never paid attention to before. The way you always knew when something was wrong. The way you made them feel safe without them even realizing it. The way your energy made everything feel just a little bit easier. And now that it's gone, everything feels different. Colder, lonelier. That's the thing about absence. It doesn't just remove a person from your life. It removes the comfort, the security, the sense of belonging that came with them. And while they might try to distract themselves, to fill the void with new people, new experiences, new relationships, nothing ever quite measures up. Because deep down, they know. What they lost was rare. And rare things aren't easily replaced. And yet, despite all of this, their pride won't let them admit it. Instead of apologizing, instead of acknowledging their mistakes, they'll convince themselves that you're the one who walked away, that you gave up, that you were the problem. Because admitting the truth, that they were the ones who pushed you away, that's too much for their ego to handle. But you already won. Because while they're stuck in their cycle of regret and denial, you're free. You're no longer waiting for them to change. You're no longer hoping they'll realize your worth. You've taken back your power. And that's something they can never undo. And that's what makes walking away so devastating for them. It's not just that you left. It's that you left on your terms. You didn't give them a final argument. You didn't give them an explanation. You didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing how much it hurt. And that's what keeps them up at night. Because now, they have to live with the one question that will never be answered. What if I had treated them better? And that's the thought they can't escape. What if? It starts small, creeping in when they least expect it. But over time, it grows. It follows them everywhere. When they hear a song you both used to love. When they visit a place that reminds them of you. When they catch themselves saying something you once said. It's in the silence of their own mind, in the spaces where your presence used to be. And no matter how hard they try to push it away, it lingers. They might pretend to move on, but the truth is, they're stuck. Because the thing about regret is that it doesn't let go easily. It clings to people, trapping them in an endless loop of what could have been. And the more they try to run from it, the stronger it gets. Because deep down, they know. You were different, you were real, and they threw it away. At some point, they'll try to justify it to themselves. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Maybe we were just too different. Maybe they weren't the right person for me. But no matter how many excuses they come up with, none of them bring comfort, because they know it wasn't about compatibility or timing or any of the other things they tell themselves to soften the blow. It was about them, their choices, their inability to see what was right in front of them. And now they have to live with that. That's when the desperation starts to show. They might reach out in subtle ways, liking an old photo, sending a meaningless message, finding some weak excuse to start a conversation, not because they've changed, but because they can't stand the idea that you're really gone, that you've moved on without them, that their presence in your life is no longer required. But here's the thing. They're not looking for reconciliation. They're looking for reassurance. They don't want to fix things. They want to know they still have access to you, that they still matter, that you still care. But the most powerful thing you can do, nothing, no response, no reaction, no acknowledgement. Because the moment you give them that, you give them power. And that's what walking away is truly about. It's not just about leaving. It's about refusing to be drawn back in. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you no longer seek validation from those who couldn't appreciate you in the first place. It's about understanding that some people only realize what they had once it's gone, and that's not your problem anymore. Because while they're stuck in the past, drowning in their own regrets, you're moving forward. You're growing. You're becoming everything they failed to see in you. And that is the ultimate revenge. And that's the cruel irony of it all. The moment they finally understand your worth is the moment they've lost their chance. They had the opportunity to appreciate you, to choose you, to treat you the way you deserved. But they didn't. And now, all they have left are memories and regrets, playing on repeat like a song they can't turn off. They might tell themselves they'll get another chance, that one day fate will bring you back together, that if they just wait long enough, you'll come back. But deep down, they know the truth. You're not coming back. And that thought alone is enough to send them spiraling. Because when you walk away for real, there is no second chance. There is no maybe someday. There's only before you left and after you were gone, and they are stuck in the after forever. At some point, they'll start rewriting the story in their head. They'll convince themselves that you were the one who changed, that you were the one who gave up, that you were the one who became distant. Because accepting the truth, that they took you for granted, that they pushed you away, that they were the reason you left, is too painful for their ego to handle. So they rewrite the narrative, twisting reality to protect themselves from the weight of their own mistakes. But no matter how much they lie to themselves, the truth remains. They lost you. Not because you wanted to leave, not because you didn't care, but because they forced you to. They treated you as if you were replaceable, and now they have to face the fact that you weren't. They'll watch from a distance, trying to convince themselves that they don't care. But every time they see you thriving, every time they see you happy, every time they realize that their absence didn't destroy you, it stings, because they expected you to break. They expected you to crumble without them. But instead you became stronger. And that's the one thing they can never forgive you for, proving that they never had the power over you that they thought they did. And now, the tables have turned. They are the ones left questioning. They are the ones left wondering. They are the ones stuck in a cycle of what-ifs that will never be answered. And you? You don't even think about them anymore. Because when you truly walk away, you don't just leave physically, You leave emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You close the door so completely that it can never be opened again. And that's what they'll never understand, that the greatest loss wasn't losing you. It was losing the version of you that once cared. Because once you stop caring, there's no coming back from that. And that's the part they never saw coming. They assumed you'd always care, that no matter how badly they treated you, no matter how many times they pushed you away, you'd still be there, waiting, hoping, holding on to the idea that one day they'd finally get it right. But what they failed to realize is that love has limits. Patience runs out. And once you reach that breaking point, there is no going back. At first they don't believe it. They convince themselves you're just angry, just trying to teach them a lesson, just waiting for them to say the right thing. But as time passes and you remain silent, the panic starts to set in. Because for the first time, they are forced to consider the possibility that this time it's different. That this time you're not just walking away, you're gone for good. And that's when the regret truly starts to suffocate them, because now it's not just about missing you. It's about realizing that they will never have another chance to fix things. That no matter what they say, no matter how much they wish they could go back, the damage is permanent. And that kind of realization, it's brutal. So they go through the stages: denial, anger, bargaining. They blame you. They blame themselves. They blame circumstances, anything to make sense of why they no longer have access to you. They try to convince themselves that you weren't that special, that what you had wasn't that deep, that they'll find someone else. But even as they say it, they know it's a lie. Because the truth is, what they lost was rare, and rare things are never easily replaced. They'll try to numb it. Maybe they'll jump into another relationship, hoping that someone new can fill the void you left behind. Maybe they'll act out, pretending they don't care, making sure everyone sees how happy they are. But none of it works, because at the end of the day, distractions can only last for so long. Eventually, the truth catches up, and when it does, it hits them harder than they ever expected. They see you moving forward, unbothered, thriving without them. And that's when it finally breaks them, because they thought you needed them. They thought you would fall apart without them. But instead you became everything they underestimated: stronger, wiser, unreachable. And that's what haunts them the most. Not just that they lost you, but that they will never again have the version of you that once cared. Because walking away isn't just about leaving. It's about evolving. It's about becoming the person they never thought you could be without them. And the worst part? They'll have to watch it all from the outside, knowing that they had a front row seat to something incredible, and they let it slip through their fingers. And that's the final punishment, watching you become everything they once had but never appreciated. It's one thing to lose someone. It's another to realize you lost them because of your own actions. And now, they have to sit with that reality. Every time they see you, whether in person, online, or even just in their memories, they're reminded of what they threw away. At first, they might try to convince themselves that they'll find someone better, that there are plenty of people out there who can replace you. But over time, reality sets in. Because connection isn't something you can just replicate. The inside jokes, the way you understood them without words, the way your presence felt like home, those things can't be manufactured. And as much as they try to recreate what they had with you, it never quite feels the same. That's when the comparisons begin. They start measuring every new interaction against what they had with you. and every time it falls short. Because what you gave them wasn't ordinary. It wasn't replaceable, and now that they know that, they have to live with the consequences. They have to watch you move on, knowing that they are no longer a part of your life. Not because you wanted to leave, but because they gave you no choice. And the worst part, they know they can never come back. They know that no matter how much they regret it, no matter how much they wish they could undo the past, they can't. Because when you walked away, you didn't leave room for a return. You didn't leave the door cracked open for them to slip back in whenever it was convenient. You made a choice, a final one, and that's what truly destroys them. Not just the loss itself, but the permanence of it. They don't get closure. They don't get a second chance. They don't get to rewrite the ending. They just have to live with it. With the silence, with the emptiness, with the knowledge that the one person who saw them, who truly understood them, is gone forever. You, on the other hand, have finally found peace. You no longer spend your nights wondering if they'll ever change, if they'll ever see your worth, if they'll ever come back with an apology that actually means something. Because you've outgrown them, you've healed, and while they're stuck in the past, trapped in a cycle of regret and what-ifs, you're stepping into a future that no longer includes them. And that's the ultimate power of walking away. It's not just about leaving, it's about proving, without a single word, that they were never as important to your happiness as they believed. Because in the end, the strongest move you'll ever make isn't fighting for someone to see your worth. It's realizing that if they couldn't see it on their own, they never deserved you in the first place. And now, the silence becomes deafening. Not for you. You've embraced it. You've found freedom in your distance, peace in your absence. But for them, the silence is a constant reminder. A reminder that they no longer have access to you, that the connection they once took for granted has been severed beyond repair. And no matter how much time passes, that fact doesn't change. They'll keep searching for a way back, whether they admit it or not. Maybe they'll linger in the shadows, watching from a distance, hoping for a sign that you still think about them. Maybe they'll convince themselves that if they wait long enough, the universe will somehow bring you back together. But the truth is that they lost their chance, and some losses are permanent. They might try one last time, one final attempt to see if there's a way back in. A late-night text, a random excuse to start a conversation, a forced, coincidental encounter. Not because they suddenly realize your worth, but because they can't handle the weight of your absence. But by then, it doesn't matter. Because when you truly walk away, you don't just leave their life. You leave their mind. You stop thinking about them. You stop wondering if they'll ever change. You stop caring. And that's when they truly lose you. Because walking away isn't just about removing yourself physically. It's about emotional detachment. It's about reaching a point where their presence, or lack of it, no longer affects you. And when that happens, there is no going back. They could come back with apologies, with promises, with grand gestures meant to undo the damage. But none of it matters anymore. Because you finally realized something they never did. You were never the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed you. And now that they've lost you, they have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And that is the true power of walking away. And now, the story is complete. Not because they finally understand, not because they've had some grand realization that changes everything, but because you have moved on. Because walking away was never about making them see your worth. It was about reclaiming your own. And now, you stand in a place they will never reach, not because you're out of sight, but because you're out of reach emotionally, mentally, spiritually. There's no lingering bitterness, no resentment, just distance, the kind of distance that can't be crossed, no matter how much they wish it could. You don't hate them, you don't wish them harm, you simply don't care anymore. And that's what makes it so final. That's what makes it so powerful. Because at the end of the day, silence is the loudest answer you'll ever give. Your absence is the harshest truth they'll ever face. And your decision to walk away, without a single word, has left an impact they will never fully recover from. They'll live with it. They'll move on in their own way. But they'll never forget. Because once someone like you is gone, there's no replacing you. There's no recreating what you brought into their life. There's just the knowledge that they had something rare, something real, and they let it slip through their fingers. And you? You're finally free. Free from the cycles, the uncertainty, the emotional exhaustion of trying to make someone see what was right in front of them. Free to live life on your terms, without waiting for someone else to catch up. Free to walk forward without ever looking back. And that's the final lesson. That's the ultimate power of walking away. It's not about making them regret losing you. It's about realizing that their regret is none of your concern anymore. And once you understand that, you win. Subscribe now, because knowing your worth is just the beginning.